Welcome to Tenkara in Focus.
This is a sort of mini tutorial series we're going to do. We're doing 3 parts, like
Yes.
we did before.
Yeah.
If you remember fly choice in focus, this is a little bit of a variation on that. We're going to be talking about flies, aren't we? But
Yeah,
more about getting started and
I was going to say it's as much as almost like an origin story, like our own backgrounds, and particularly my sort of personal genesis into blending fly tying with fly fishing.
Yeah.
And not only talking about Kibari, it's not only at all focused on Tenkara. This is just generically tying flies and the satisfaction, and blending it with with your approach on stream, and actually bringing that satisfaction to the whole activity.
I remember you were talking about your initial sort of hump to get over with tying flies and using flies.
Yeah.
I think we're both from that same background as bait anglers as kids.
Yeah.
From the sort of bent pin and a worm kind of school. Although I don't think either of us actually used a bent pin as kids.
Not until we started Tenkara.
We took a step back there.
You're dead right though. I mean, we both, I certainly had a long apprenticeship in bait fishing in the sea and in still waters, in fresh water, that kind of thing. I think you had a similar sort of background. But for me, I could never sort of really get my head around the idea that a fish or particularly a trout would think that something that's just material wrapped onto a hook.
Looking at them, some of that.
Yeah,
I'd still have that reservation.
Whoa! I thought we agreed to.
I'll go easy on you.
No, but that was it. It was a huge thing for me. I sort of defaulted back to bait fishing a lot of the time, and then so the first time a fish actually grabbed an artificial fly. That was like a revelation. This is a new, whole new world.
Well, not only that, I mean, if you started, I think we both started the same way on still waters with fly fishing.
Yes.
And so you're doing like a little retrieve.
Yeah.
And then when you get that jangle on the other end, it's nothing like you see when you're fishing with a float with bait. You just see that thing sort of move.
Yeah.
This is a real sort of feedback moment, isn't it? Where it's like, whoa,
yeah.
It's alive.
It just got real.
Yeah.
But that was, that was one hump, sort of got over that kind of psychological barrier, and that was like, a big thing. But then, initially, actually, to be perfectly honest, I was going to say shot bought flies, but a lot of these were just inherited from my brother, who would sort of actually go out and buy the things. And then, he's a few years older than me, and he's very kind. He actually gave me quite a lot of flies. But using the sort of shot bought flies, I was able to get a little bit of confidence going with, things like that. That's a Ted Stonefly, if memory serves correctly. But that particular specimen is over 30 years old.
It's got very similar sort of look as a Montana, hasn't it?
Yes,
If you've never heard of a Ted Stonefly, you've probably heard of a Montana, and it's pretty.
Yeah, it's
similar,
brown and orange Montana, you'd say, pretty much like exactly that. But then, so I thought, I want to sort of get a piece of this and actually sort of try and tie some flies, and sort of struggled with just all the basics, getting the hook, the thread on the hook, and the hackles to wind or whatever else. So what I would end up doing, and this is one of my efforts, and don't have to stifle your giggles, but basically,
we have a saying, don't we? That'll catch me.
Maybe. But here's the thing, I couldn't bring myself. I would always put this on, or something like this. One of my efforts that was a copy, as best that I could do of a shot boat fly. I'd tie one on. I'd put it on for half a dozen casts, and nothing would happen, and I'd just lose confidence, completely deflated. And I'd go back to the tried and tested, the shot bought ones. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person that's sort of gone through that as a kind of a process.
It's a little bit like lighting a fire, isn't it? You get people, when they can't light a fire, it's like, how do these people do it? It won't burn. It won't start. Yeah. But once you've got the knack of lighting a fire, then you light a fire and you look like a survival genius. And I think when you start using your own flies and it doesn't catch straight away, you feel like you're missing that sort of magical step that other people know.
Yeah.
But you're not. It's just a case of you need
persevere.
Good timing. If you tied that fly at just the right moment and you caught a fish, then you've got that instant confidence. And it's not till you get that first sort of 2 or 3 fish in quick succession on your own fly that the world completely changes for you. And
it does, and this is the thing. I mean, again, it's sort of moving forward in time a little bit with plenty of trial and error from that sort of point. This is an actual one of my flies, and I reckon I tied this between maybe 28 and 30 years ago, something like that. It's still got quite a big head on it, I'll admit it's not perfect.
That fly is flying like that earns the reputation of being chicken chuckers.
But here's the thing: if you
it does look like a chicken.
it does, and it's a bait fish imitation, a classic '70s fly called a Jack Frost.
Yeah.
But if you put that one next to a shot boat one, it's starting to look like the proportions and the techniques and the way that the materials are actually applied to the hook started to get a bit better. And then this is the point, actually, I would say from that point onwards, where I actually began to not only get the same amount of confidence in my own flies as shot bought ones, but I actually eventually began to prefer them because you could tweak details, you could make local adaptations, you could get the sort of the hot sort of elements in a fly for your particular fisheries.
I think that's a moment, isn't it, in a fly fisher and fly tyers sort of development. When you start, I mean, there's plenty of people out there that don't tie, and if you've stuck with us this far, there's a chance we might change that for you. It would be nice if we could convert a few people who don't tie, because we are going to be talking about some very simple tying later on in this series.
Yeah.
But there's that sort of progression. Once you get past that hump of tying your own flies, then you get past that second hump of actually feeling like they can succeed.
Yeah.
There comes to a point where you get this wonderful, rewarding experience of, I did the whole thing. It's almost, once you get to the point of tying your own flies, it's almost like if you don't use your own fly, it's like you didn't cast it out yourself. If a guy did the cast for you and then handed you the rod for you to catch the fish, it almost feels like that with your fly, doesn't it? So you're sort of losing out on part of the credit and part of the sort of achievement by not using your own sort of tied fly.
Yeah, in the same way, a lot of people, if they're hiking, they like to do the full route. They don't, even if something happens, they have to go back and repeat a bit or something like that. It's like it's engaging in the whole process from scratch. And feeling like, I understood that all the steps, all the way through. And it's a cliche, but there's a good reason it's a cliche, because it's true. There is a satisfaction in wrapping that material onto the hook, and then actually having that success with the whole fish capture, the whole process, start to finish, and feeling like you've really, I kind of mastered that. And take some pride in it, and I think it's a good thing. And just, it wasn't so long after that kind of initial hump, with a little bit more practice, you're starting to get, this is traditional sort of wet fly, hackling, things like that, things, being a bit more subtle with the thread turns and just making that progress.
So this was tied by the young Paul Gaskell?
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad. I'd fish that.
I've never heard him gush like that before.
I'd fish that. With the bar pinched down.
Well, that's it. I mean, this is definitely put and take. Catching
the
stockers.
1980s. It was a the accessibility of trout fishing in the Midlands was pretty much reservoirs, wasn't it? As a kid, there's no way as teenagers would have been able to afford a day river fishing.
Not so much, no.
And some of the rivers we fish now that you've seen in Tenkari and Focus were still running polluted back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's another story. In terms of where are we going with this? What is the point of talking about all these old flies? I think it might be worth kind of showing people, one of your sort of early learning developments.
Definitely. Before we just get to that, though, what I will say is that this is like a process that took a long time, but it needn't necessarily have, because there was a lot of trial and error involved with it. Yeah. But also, what I found, the accidental benefit to learning this, isn't only my own selfish success. It's that actually being able to teach other people. Yeah. So I'm starting to teach my kids to tie flies now, and that's a massive gift to be able to give someone that kind of competence. To have the same enjoyment that we've both got out of that sport. And you shouldn't underestimate that. It might not necessarily be your own sort of personal development in fly tying. It might actually be just the ability as well to pass that on. And that's a great segue, thank you for bringing it up, into one of the things that I learned through some hard-won trial and error, which is how the hell you do a whip finish, because it's a big stumbling block for many, many tyers.
I've done a bit of teaching myself in fly tying as well as in sort of guided on stream fishing, and it is the mental block that I think stops a lot of people from even trying. You see that tool, and it's just like a Chinese puzzle,
or a medieval torch or something.
What the hell do I do with this thing? So if you're going to show us some tying, I'm assuming you're going to need a vice.
Well, that would be handy.
Well, through the magic of modern camera work, etc. Shazam! Bing! Magic vice.
As if by magic.
Yeah. So, you're promising us this one finger whip finish. Sounds like magic to me.
Well, let's give it a go. Well, we'll catch on, but John will actually give a bit of a secret to this one in the next piece. But let's imagine you've come to the end of your fly and you've got your thread like that. Basically, I always think that anybody can learn to do a whip finish. You probably won't be able to do it the first time.
Yeah.
But when you understand it, you understand that one leg of the loop is actually laid in line with the shank. And then you wrap in the other leg around both that leg and the shank itself. So I say if you can pick your nose, you can do a whip finish, right? So you take a turn of thread around your finger like that, and then you position that thread onto the shank, and then it's just that sort of almost like a nose picking action where you're rotating. Can you see how that leg of the thread's going around the other one?
Yeah.
And if you just then pinch all that in place, it drops in like that. I'll do that again just to show. So you get it, cross over like that, touch it down, and then it's rotating using the back of your finger and then the pad of your finger as it's turning around like that. And once you understand that, you see the mechanics of the knot.
Yeah.
And then it's much easier to understand how the tool itself works, and it's much easier to build up to doing a two-finger one where you've got a bit more control over the thread. But for now, if you do that around your finger, you can understand how that knot starts to work. And it just makes things much easier for you.
Quick dab of varnish or glue on there when you've done all the extra security.
And obviously you've got your tag ends to just trim off or whatever.
Or if you've been picking your nose, it might just open up.
The thread's a little bit frayed there, but it's just, it's just part of the thing.
I mean, if you're tying a kibari,
a
bit of frayed might add to the aesthetic.
But that's it. I mean, if you've got a little teaching tip, if you imagine that sort of rotating movement, you understand that if you can do a half hitch, I'd say you can do a whip finish with very little transition sort of skill.
Marvellous. So if it's your first time, give it a go. And just like that, the device is gone. The wonders of modern editing. That one finger whip finish is a nice little trick, and we're going to be sharing a few more tricks in the next video. So if you're keen to sort of learn a few new tricks if you tie already, or if you've never tied and you fancy giving it a go, then stick around for the next video.
It'll build up though. It'll be like building blocks and sort of develop things as we go along. But that was like one of the first big stumbling blocks that I came across. I thought we'd just knock that one down straight away.
I thought we'd keep this one short and sweet, so we're aiming for about 10 minutes, almost like that coffee break episode length. In the coming episodes, we're going to be talking a little bit about sort of biology and biological triggers. Paul being a PhD in freshwater ecology and myself having a BSc in field biology and habitat management. We've gone into quite a bit of depth, haven't we?
I think it informs, we spent a lot of time on stream as well. So it informs really how we understand the triggering of that. But we practically experiment with it within the fishing as well. It's important to have both the fishing and the kind of theory, if you like, behind it. Yeah,
it does give us a kind of, I don't want to say unique perspective, because it's not like we're the only people in biology in fishing. It seems to be a career pathway for a lot of fishermen. But it definitely gives you an edge and a certain set of reasoning skills that lead to some very, very solid foundations for building.
Listen, it brings a lot to your fly time as well. Understanding that on a deep level.
In what you can leave out as much as what you need to add, which is
100%.
what we're going to be coming on to in the next episode. So for now, don't miss those next episodes.
We're coming along in a couple of days, but what I would say is that people who are already on the email subscriber list will get a notification and a link directly through to the next episode. So the next instalment, should I say. So you won't miss it. If you fancy that same sort of luxury and also a load of free tuition, go ahead and sign up. We'll put a link somewhere handy for you to do that.
Probably on screen somewhere or in a description where you found this video. Couple of last things. Head over to discover10carat.com if you want to see more of the things we do, more of the videos we do. And thanks to everyone who signed up to Patreon and is supporting us doing things like this. And if you want to support more of this kind of stuff, you can head over to patreon.com/10carat and you can help us out with these kind of programs. But I think for now, that pretty much wraps it up.
Don't miss the next episode then, because John's going to smash it. I'm absolutely certain. So we'll catch you then.
See you real soon.